The government of Canada is spending over $100 billion of your money to solve the housing crisis. They tell you a simple story. Canada has a massive housing shortage, and the only way out is to build, build, and more build. This is a clean narrative that justifies huge government programs and sets the stage for future tax hikes. But what if that's not the whole truth? Why are the developers now struggling with the rising inventory of unsold homes? Why have the pre-construction condo sales in our biggest city collapsed to the lowest not seen in decades? And why are the rental markets suddenly starting to cool down, giving tenants more breathing room? It turns out there are two completely different housing strategies unfolding in Canada right now. One is the official story they tell you. The other one is the buried in the data. Today we are going to expose the great Canadian housing lie. We will pick apart the official narrative, look at the real numbers they hope you don't see, and follow the money to show you who is really going to get rich off this story. The official story, the one that you hear from Ottawa and in the headlines, is simple and scary. Canada is trapped in a severe housing shortage. The government and its agencies have hammered this point home. To make housing more affordable for the average family again, we need to build millions of new homes. They have pointed out that a household with the average income would have to spend nearly 60% of it just on the housing. This story is the bedrock of Canada's national housing strategy. A massive decade-plus plan with a price tag that has ballooned over $115 billion. Launched back in 2017, this strategy is the government's flagship response, designed as a comprehensive fix to the entire housing system. The latest and the most aggressive part of this plan is the Build Canada Homes Act, introduced in early 2026 using $13 billion of taxpayers' money. This legislation creates a new Crown corporation with a power to acquire public lands and partner with private developers to fast-track affordable housing construction. The government presents it as the ultimate tool to build more homes, faster, using modern methods like modular construction. The goal sounds great. This strategy aims to create hundreds of thousands of new housing units, repair existing homes, and slash chronic homelessness. It's a tangled web of programs, funds, and initiatives all designed to attack the problem from every other angle. We have things like Housing Accelerator Fund, meant to cut the red tape for builders, and the Apartment Construction Loan Program, offering low-cost loans to developers, a program that's been tapped out with millions in additional funding. On the surface, it looks like a full-scale assault on the housing crisis. The government policy itself looks like a hero, using taxpayers' dollars to fight a national shortage and restore affordability. They have defined the problem as a simple lack of supply that can only be solved with a fire hose of public money and a building boom. But when you start digging into the market, real-time data from 2025 and 2026, that simple story completely falls apart. The official story of a universal shortage hit a brick wall when you look at the facts on the ground. Let's look at the numbers, telling a very different and much more complicated story. First, the condo market. For years, the engine of urban construction. It's not just slowed down. In some cities, it's come to a grinding halt. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, now projects that new home constructions will decline nationally all the way to 2028. And they have pointed out that the main culprit, the condominium sector, is the main drag on the entire real estate market. In Toronto, the situation is even more dire. Pre-construction condos plummeted in 2025 to multi-decade lows. One report from the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area noted that only 1,599 new condos were sold in the entire year of 2025, a 34 record low. This collapse in demand is forcing developers to slam the brakes. As a direct result, overall housing starts in Ontario have projected to fall nearly 2-decade lows in 2026. Projects are being delayed or cancelled because the developers can't get financing without these early sales. This isn't just a Toronto problem. Vancouver is also seeing a sharp pullback in condo development. This leads to the second major crack in the shortage narrative: the growing pile of unsold homes. The CMHC has repeatedly confirmed that developers are grappling with the rising inventories of unsold units across the country. In Edmonton, for example, the inventory buildup is so significant that builders are expected to pull back on all new projects in 2026 just to sell what they have already built. We have had a simple, desperate shortage everywhere. These homes would be flying off the shelf. They are not. The third crack is appearing in the rental market. For years, the story was all about bidding wars and soaring rents. But now that tide is turning. The CMHC forecasts that rental market across the country are moving towards a balanced market. They expect higher vacancy rates and slower rent growth nationwide, which they say will give renters more time and more flexibility to save for buying a home. That language doesn't exactly scream crisis. Vacancy rates are up in cities like Edmonton and Calgary, and even in Montreal, where the market has been tight. Rates climbed as high as 4.5% in some areas. So we have a condo market in deep freeze, a growing pile of unsold new homes, and a rental market that's starting to soften. This isn't a story of simple, uniform shortage. It's far more complex. If the market is seeing a glut of unsold condos and rental vacancies are on the rise, then who exactly is this shortage for? What problem is a $115 billion strategy actually trying to solve? And more importantly, who profits from making you believe we just need to build more of everything, no matter what? The answers are in the details they leave out. If you think it's time to look past the headlines and get to the truth, hit that subscribe button and let's follow where the money is going. Here's the great Canadian housing line. Spelled out, it's not a shortage that doesn't exist. It's that they are using one very real crisis to sell you a solution that benefits a completely different group of people. There are two housing shortages in Canada, and they're not the same. The first is the real painful shortage of affordability, non-market and community housing. This is the crisis affecting most vulnerable, low-income families, senior citizens, people with disabilities, and those experiencing homelessness. And to be fair, this is needed, but we have to ask why we are bringing immigrants who stay on welfare. Why are Canadians here at home experiencing homelessness? Is it because of unemployment is so high and there are no full-time good-paying jobs? The narrative sold to the public is so much broader and simple. A general, all-encompassing housing shortage that requires us to build millions of any and all types of home. And this is where we find out who really profits. The primary beneficiaries of "we just need more supply" story are the large for-profit developers of market-rate housing. When the government declares a national crisis of supply, it creates an immense political pressure to do one thing: make it easier and cheaper for private companies to build. This narrative is the key that unlocks a treasure chest of pro-developer policies. It's used to justify fast-tracking approvals, pushing cities to reduce development charges, and offering massive financial incentives, like removing the GST on new rental construction. We have to ask why 30% of the price of a new home is government charges. Why do we have such a big overhead of government employees? Why do we have so many studies that take so much time and cost so much money before the builder can even start digging? These policies directly boost the profitability of private lenders to build mostly rental properties, creating a nation of renters. Unless you plan on becoming a renter, this does not help you, but you are paying for it out of your taxes. They get to build faster for less money and for more government support. The shortage narrative helps keep land values high and serve as a powerful lobbying tool to ensure public policy is always tilted in their favor. It creates a climate where their business interests are framed as a national interest. Governments also profit politically. Declaring a crisis and announcing a massive multi-billion-dollar spending plan is a powerful way to show voters that they are taking action. It allows them to create new funds and agencies, expanding their influence and giving the appearance of solving a problem, even if the solution is poorly aimed. And let's not forget the financial sector. For more construction means more loans. It means more construction financing for developers and more mortgages for buyers. A high volume of real estate activity fueled by the government incentives and a crisis narrative is incredibly profitable for the banks and the lenders. Here's the disconnect. The data clearly shows that the private market, particularly for the new condos in major centers like Toronto and Vancouver, is stalling because there isn't enough demand. Yet, the government continues to push a broad supply shortage narrative. They are using the very real pain of the affordability crisis as a cover-up to spend billions in ways that primarily benefits the market rate developers industry, an industry that is currently struggling to sell the very product they have already built. The lie is conflating the two problems. They are using a social crisis to subsidize a corporate one. So let's put it all together. They are telling you there is a dire universal housing shortage to justify $100 billion plus spending spree. But when you look at the data, you see a market choking on unsold condominiums, with housing starts set to fall for years because demand simply isn't there. The great Canadian housing lie isn't the claim that there is a shortage. The lie is in the diagnosis. The shortage they talk about in the headline is a convenient generalized narrative. It's a story that allows private developers to reap and the rewards of the government policy, and it allows politicians to look like they are taking decisive action, all while the fundamental problem of affordability for those most in need gets worse. For some, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. So the next time you hear a politician promise to solve the housing crisis by simply building more homes, ask them, what kind of homes and for who? Because hundreds of billions of dollars question is whether they are solving your problem or for someone else. If you are thinking of buying or selling real estate in the GTA, please give me a call. My information is in the description below. Until next time, see you soon.